Copy here, and today we have a new episode in the art review series. And today we'll be checking out the work of Ari Targownik. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but we'll call him Ari. He's a senior concept artist at Rumble Entertainment, and he's based in LA, US of A. He does call himself the Nuclear Warrior, which is pretty interesting. And we'll actually be focusing more on his personal work. I find his personal work is more consistent, and you'll see in his portfolio, I guess, on his art station under the personal work tab, that each kind of piece each kind of post is focused under one kind of color theme, which I do like. It's pretty simple. It's not that bright. It's not that overwhelming. If you check out his entire art station portfolio, it is kind of all over the place, which, I mean, you can see a pattern. He does focus more on character design, creature design a bit. And a lot of his creature designs, they're more humanoid-ish, or they have that humanoid form. So it's not like animalistic in any way. It's more of an exaggeration of the basic humanoid form. But again, we'll be focusing more on his personal work because it looks cool. And it's pretty consistent. I do like the colors. They're super simple. They're not that vibrant, I guess. They're more under one color theme, and it's kind of easier to consume, I guess. So yeah, before we go to his each piece, let's check out his YouTube channel, which is, he does call himself the Nuclear Warrior. I'm not sure what that's for, but I guess he's somewhat dystopian. Who knows? He does have a few time-lapse digital paintings, which is nice. He doesn't post as often. It's been a while since he posted on his YouTube channel. And he doesn't have that many subs, so I do recommend you subscribe to his channel. He does have an interesting way of painting. He does use, at least for this example, he does use a basic round brush, which is pretty cool because in our last art review, we did review a guy named, I forgot how to pronounce his first name. Someone mentioned how to pronounce his first name, but the Third Eye guy, the last art review I did, he also does use a round brush, and it's super nice to see. Nuclear Warrior does remind me a bit also of Anthony Jones in terms of the design. Not just the design or the shapes, but the way of painting. It's pretty direct. Now, he's not just limited to using a simple round brush. There's another video of his where he uses a more opaque brush. It's almost like a gouache kind of approach where it's a bit more opaque and not as circly or roundy. Fuck. But anyway, he's a very direct kind of painter where he's not really into the whole layer thing, where he's very kind of meticulous with the layering of the entire painting. He's more of a direct painter, and whenever he makes a mistake, as you can see, he just paints over it, which I think is way faster. It's way faster, and it's just more direct, and there's less boundaries, or there's less kind of in the way if you paint this way, if you paint in a more direct fashion. And I think you do save a lot of time if you paint in this is vibrant the word? It's not vibrant. It's just pure. It's raw. It's kind of like, think of how Feng Zhu sometimes paints. He doesn't really have that many layers. He recommends, Feng Zhu always recommends, especially if you're trying to start out or if you're trying to develop your painting skills, he recommends that you paint with a basic background layer, so you don't really have a choice so you have no choice but to paint in that one layer. And I think it's super helpful because you can save so much time, you can save so much effort and energy. Instead of constantly trying to create new layers, why not just paint directly? When it comes to his forms, I think he's heavily influenced by the work of H.R. Geiger. He's the guy responsible for the alien xenomorph designs, it's pretty common. I think a lot of concept artists have been influenced by the work of H.R. Geiger. It's pretty dark, pretty kind of, is dystopian the word? Maybe not. It's very alienish, lots of anatomy involved, and there's kind of a slight sexual tension there, but it's also pretty dark and almost demonic in a way. You can see that a lot in his art station, especially in his personal work. It's very dark. There's not a lot of life, and it does have an eerie feeling to his. There is kind of it's not dark. It's like a mysterious kind of vibe to it. Especially this one. That this one does have a sexual theme to it, but If you go to his other painting, his other time-lapse digital painting, I think this was a Star Wars inspired painting. I believe this guy in the center is the Sith Lord, and then I forgot what these things are called, but they're the small teddy bear people in Star Wars. And as you can see, he's very opaque. So he's not using the round brush. There's a bit more texture in this specific painting, but if you look at the way he paints, now he does use some layers, and it helps to organize, I guess, the keyframe or the environment. But his general approach is that he's very opaque, which I do like. It's just, I think I would call his work or call his painting style just direct painting, where there's not a lot. He's not really using a lot of tricks. He's just more direct with his work. A bit of layering, I guess, because again, it's in an environment, it's a bit more complicated, but it does save time a bit. But in general, he's just a very direct kind of painter, and it does save time. And it's kind of hard because you do have to get it right in the beginning, but not really, because you can always paint over your mistakes. And I think that's what's so cool about painting in a more direct fashion, in a more opaque fashion. Like once you've made a stroke, if it doesn't work out, just paint over that stroke. And I think that's it's a great way to save time, and it's more fun, I think. And there's less thinking, because you're allowed to make mistakes, because you're allowed to just paint over your mistakes anyway, so you don't have to have that pressure of getting everything right from the very beginning, because usually there's this process where you start with the rough sketch, and then the line work, and then the cell shading or something. And it's almost like an engineering problem, and to me, it takes away from the artistic element, or it takes away the fun side of art making, where you can make a bit more, or where you can have. The point is this: it's just way more fun, and I think it's super inspiring seeing people paint this way. And what's so cool about this specific painting is he was actually able to get the likeness of the Sith Lord, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure why he's in this setting, but I do think this was based off of a Star Wars, I think this is based off of Star Wars, or off of the Star Wars franchise. But yeah. Oh shit, there's a bit of context here. It's proposed by Red Letter Media as a joke, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And you can see his very direct painting approach, which is just in general cool. So aside from this paint, let's just skip it to the end. As you can see, it does look a lot like fuck me, it's so fast. He does look like the Sith Lord in the Star Wars films, which is super cool. Although these guys, the teddy bear people, they're pretty tall in this one, but I do like the vibe a bit. It does have like a Game of Thrones kind of vibe. Instead of it having like swords and spikes. I mean, there are spikes. These are most like bones, I guess, of who knows, but yeah. He was able to get the likeness, and look at the way he paints. Even the background, or the architecture, the interior architecture, it's somewhat realistic. If you zoom in, you'll be able to see his brushstrokes, but there is a hint of realism in his work, and you can see it a lot in his personal work. So here we have. I did download a couple of his personal work pieces, and this is definitely inspired by H.R. Geiger. Very, very mysterious, dark theme. It's kind of under the cool side, where it's somewhat bluish, but as you can see, there's a lot of dead bodies. They're almost like mummies in a way, and a lot of exploration in terms of the human form. You can see some chicks, nice boobs, some guys. It's almost dark, not almost, it is dark, and it's pretty eerie, it doesn't look comfortable, and I think that's what he's trying to convey. And you can see this a lot, or this kind of vibe, in H.R. Geiger's work. These ones, this actually does remind me a bit of Anthony Jones, especially these two, because the whole black and white thing. Anthony Jones is a concept artist, and he does like to paint in black and white. It saves so much time, and you can explore the forms faster without having to think about the color. So now these two on the left side, they're a bit more sketchy, but you can tell he does paint in a very direct fashion. He's not like doing the line work first and then doing the under kind of flat colors. It's very direct, and there's a nice, it looks good, because it just looks more raw and looks more pure. I think. And there's a lot of it conveys so much confidence, I think. I'd also recommend the work of Miguel Iglesias. He kind of paints in the same way where they're very direct, where they're both direct painters. You can tell by his brush work, there's a bit of noise texture in his brush. But in general, he doesn't really have like rough textures in the actual painting. He likes to play a lot with the values, and he likes to define a lot of the form. So a lot of lighting values involved. He likes to paint in grayscale usually, and then he likes to define the forms with the whole cuts and stuff. Like a lot of the forms within the forms are pretty defined, and like each of his sketches have a wide value range. And a lot of his sketches, even if it's in grayscale, it does look very realistic. And I guess it's because of the wide range of values. Now this one is a bit more detailed, way more contrast. And it does remind me of the engineer design in the Alien Xenomorph world. So maybe there's a bit of H.R. Geiger thing going on here. And I guess a lot of his work is more sci-fi, science fiction. As you can see, he's using some kind of square brush that's kind of rounded off on the edges. And I do like the look of it. Look at the face, it's super realistic. Even the way the alien ears are done, it looks so unique and cool. Now this one is my favorite, I guess, just because it's more contrasted. And it looks very sketchy but finished at the same time. Here we have, this one does remind me a bit of Anthony Jones. Very, very exaggerated, almost like cancerous types of creatures. But look at how it's not even that defined, not that finished, but from afar it looks enough. And I think that there is value. There is value in painting things from afar. Like you don't have to zoom in and make everything so tight. Just make sure the general silhouette is there, and that each part is kind of, or it kind of makes sense from afar, and it looks good. And again, it doesn't have a lot of color. You can see some highlights at the top. There's some kind of light source above. And then everything else is just green, I guess. This one's more demonic. Kind of similar to Anthony Jones. They're very dark people, or I don't know, maybe they have some kind of past trauma. Who knows? Or maybe it's just, I think a lot of creature designers are just kind of cool. But anyway, this one is somewhat demonic. And I think he does use the graded maps to color his grayscale sketches. He's using the same gradient map for this one, and I believe this one as well. Very unique designs from each other, but they're all dark. Now this one's more of a skeleton thing. And I do like the flaps. He does like adding a lot of flaps, kind of like Anthony Jones. So maybe they both know each other, perhaps. Now this one does remind me a lot of the work of H.R. Geiger. There is some kind of sensual, but at the same time dark element to this. So the eyes are being, I guess, eye fucked. And the mouth, like that is a blowjob, essentially. And you can see a lot of this kind of theme or this kind of thing in H.R. Geiger's work. It's somewhat sexual, but somewhat dark and eerie. And it looks somewhat dead and like lifeless. I think this piece could definitely fit in the world of H.R. Geiger. And yeah, it's super cool. Maybe he did just copy this guy and then he just toned down the details as he goes further away. But it's super cool. And again, look at the colors. There's not a lot of color. It's just blue. I do think he usually starts his paintings in grayscale, and then he'll probably use a gradient map to add a bit of color. And in this case, there's no color. It's just blue. Now in this case, it's very flesh-like. And I think he did start this again in grayscale, and then he simply added the reds, maybe again with a gradient map or with some layer modes. But I do like the way he doesn't use photo textures as much. I think he just likes to paint or suggest the textures. As you can see if you zoom in, these white highlights, they're just painted in, but from afar they look like almost like plastic or like neat, which is super cool. And again, you don't even have to use, which is so cool, you don't have to use photo textures all the freaking time. You can just paint them, you can suggest them, and it helps. You can save a lot of time by just painting from afar. You don't have to zoom in all the time. And if you check out Ari's work, it looks good and pretty cool. And he does fade out the strokes as he goes further away, and it does make it look more artsy. If you have like a chunk of space where it's more, I guess, defined, and then as you go further away, it's more loose and sketchy, and you can see more of the breaking of the brush strokes. Super cool. Here we have a green thing. Two different things. This one is more of a soldier, I guess, or a police guy. Policeman. Police guy. Now, this one's more of a creature. It's almost like cancer. It looks cancerous, but again, I'm guessing he did this in grayscale and then he added the colors later on. Some blues, or some blue-green, and some greens, some yellows. Again, look at the way he does the forms. They're very organic. He's a very organic kind of person. He doesn't have a lot of mechs in his portfolio, and even if he does like armored people, the armor itself is still somewhat organic. Lots of round corners, round shapes. It's not very like rough or not. It's not. He doesn't have a lot of sharp work, I think. I do like the way he did the colors on this one, like the fading of the yellow against the blues or the blue-greens. And if you zoom in, I mean, it's not even that detailed, but from afar, why does it look so good? He did focus more on the upper torso, the armor, and the helmet head thing. This guy, I think, has a weird face. He's some kind of squid guy, perhaps. And I think he does have a bit of fashion knowledge, like the way he does his attires or costumes, clothing. It looks well thought of, or it's not even that defined, but it looks full, you know? And again, it does have that realistic look to it. Like the way he does his lighting, I think really makes or really sells the realism in his work. And again, does it look like he's photo bashing? I mean, he's just suggesting the textures and the values, the lighting. Even in this helmet, he was able to make it look somewhat metallic, which is super cool. Anthony Jones does the same thing. He has a lot of like helmet designs and he doesn't have to like bash in like a texture. He'll just suggest the actual texture through his paint strokes. Yeah, there is a lot of like realism in his work in a way. Not in everything, but in the main parts. He's really the head. Nice teeth. Yellow teeth. I think he's using the same color schemes for these three. And again, some fashion sense here. And again, even the armor is somewhat organic. The head is still organic. Like everything is just organic. He does have like a fashion sense, I think. Shit, kind of like Anthony Jones. Both of these guys are kind of very, very similar. Anyway, now this one's more of a grayscale. Now maybe he could add a graded map and add some color and shit, but right now it's in grayscale. And he has a very solid understanding of anatomy. Like it's not perfect, but he can make it look really realistic and really believable, I think. Maybe it's not accurate, but it looks so believable. Like the cuts of like the muscles and the fat, like the way the folds are done, the way the elbows are kind of protruding and such. Like you can sense the bone structure and the musculature. Is that a word? Musculature? The muscles essentially. And yeah, it's super cool and very alien-ish. Heavy on the dark creature side. This one's more sci-fi. Not a lot of fantasy in his work. I guess he has a lot of anatomy influence. Again, maybe it's because of H.R. Geiger. Who knows? But the lighting is also pretty good. Wide range of values. Look at how the light part here is done. And it's not like all over the place. And I don't think he does use pure white. And I think that's the trick when you're doing grayscale paintings. Don't or avoid using pure white. And I think it makes the coloring process way easier, especially when you're using like layer modes or some kind of graded map. And yeah, pretty cool. So that's it for the work of Ari Targownik. You know, Ari Targownik is an interesting artist to study. I think if you're trying to be more of a direct painter, like straightforward, not a lot of layer use, I do recommend you check out Nuclear Warrior or Ari Targownik. And he does have other links, so I'll just link all of his links in the description below. I do recommend you check out his YouTube channel because he does have more videos, more time-lapse videos of him painting in his kind of more direct way. And yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next art review.